Ka-chow, it's popping YouTube, so we're back at it for part 3 of my villain deep dive into the Daleks. I've got a bit of a cold for this one, and this is probably going to be a long one, so strap in. But copyright was also a real pain with the last video, like a real pain to be able to even upload it. So from now on, I think I will be mostly using still images with a few clips sprinkled in. Sorry, but blame the BBC and their frankly insane copyright claims. They make Disney look reasonable by comparison. So today we are dealing with the Davros era of the classic series, and why I frankly really don't like him past Genesis of the Daleks, but we'll get there in a minute. So speaking of Genesis of the Daleks, here we go. So the Daleks wouldn't appear again until the absolute masterpiece of Genesis of the Daleks in 1975. This story is what most people think of when they think of classic Who. This episode is, it's widely considered to be the best Dalek story of all time, and is definitely the best Dalek story of the classic era. The episode is so good it basically redeems the Third Doctor's entire era of Dalek nonsense. Enter Genesis of the Daleks. I recommend that every Doctor Who fan checks this one out. It might be the best episode of the classic series in general, so... Genesis of the Daleks opens on the 4th Doctor, Sarah Jane and Harry. They arrive on a ravaged war zone of a planet with widely differing technologies. The Doctor realises that they are dealing with a very long war, with the technology getting worse and worse as it goes on, instead of, better and better. Basically, they would have started out with, laser guns and then reverted back to bows and arrows. So they do learn that they are actually on Skaro, as the Time Lords have whisked the Doctor away to the planet. The Time Lords have foreseen a time in the future where the Daleks will have conquered the universe and become the supreme beings. So they want them to go back and do the whole kill Hitler while he's a baby thing, but this time with the Daleks. So yeah, the Time Lords are getting pretty desperate. The war they are witnessing is the war between the Thals and the Daleks, and brace yourself guys for the entirety of Dalek history to be completely retconned in this episode. So... Anyway, they get attacked while dicking around in the wasteland, and Harry and the Doctor get captured with the Khaleds, and Sarah Jane ends up with this mutant thing called a Muto, who is basically a survivor of the nuclear weapons used in the war. So the Khaleds, not the Dals anymore, but the Khaleds, are the proto-Daleks, and this time the Nazi symbolism is, not very subtle. Anyway, so Harry and the Doctor end up in this Khaled dome, and Sarah Jane gets nabbed by the Thals and taken to their dome. So everyone lives in these domes now because the surface is completely irradiated, and it's the only way you can survive. So the Doctor gets taken to this bunker thing, where all the science elite of the Khaleds are, and asked a bunch of questions about, being a filthy alien. But then this nutter called Davros comes in and unveils the Mark III travel machine, which is just a Dalek casing, and it immediately wants to kill all the aliens.
Brilliant. Brilliant. It has detected the non-conformity. Idiots! I must exterminate! Exterminate! No!
Sarah Jane and the Mutos are then used by the Thals as slave labour to load this big rocket thing with bombs. The Thals' great plan is that they're going to just launch this rocket at the Khaled dome and, exterminate them all. See what I did there? And so this dude Ronson, who is one of the scientists, talks to the Doctor and agrees that Davros' experiments are extremely unethical, and, because basically the Thals and the Khaleds are mutating, but Davros has accelerated the process for the Khaleds to find, the ultimate version of the Khaleds, and that's the Daleks. None of this slow, evolution crap from the Daleks' original story. It's now he just Frankensteined them, but we're going to get to Davros in a minute. So the Doctor is able to convince the Khaled leadership to put a stop to Davros' experiments temporarily, so Davros and his main man Nida roll over to the Thal Dome and give them this formula that will, allow the Thal rocket to destroy the Dalek city and kill all the Khaleds, because the dome is, protected by this, crazy chemical barrier that Davros made or something, and this formula will let the rocket actually penetrate it. The Doctor and Harry then run off across the wasteland to get to the Thal Dome and rescue Sarah Jane, which is a good thing, because obviously the Khaled Dome is about to go boom. Anyway, and then the Thals fire the rocket and kill the Khaleds, except for the ones in the bunker. Davros then decides it's time to unleash the Daleks on the Thals, and has Ronson killed, as he claims that he's the one who leaked the info to the Thals in the first place. And, the Daleks get their first canonical kill. And it is, quite over the top.
Exterminate! Exterminate! No! Exterminate! No! No!
So the Thals are all celebrating and they let all their prisoners go, which is good news for us because, Sarah Jane's a prisoner. However, then the Daleks show up and just start to kill them all. So the Doctor gets a group of the 1,000 Mutos to help him take out Davros and his Daleks. The Doctor and Harry and Sarah Jane sneak back into the Khaled bunker to destroy the Daleks, which and get the Thals to try and figure out a way to destroy the bunker itself. Anyway, so the Doctor gets captured by Davros, and Davros begins to interrogate him about all the times the Daleks have ever lost in the past. He starts torturing Harry and Sarah Jane, so the Doctor buckles and gives him the info, meaning that the Daleks will basically now be completely victorious because Davros can just work out every design flaw that the Daleks ever had. So not good, yeah. The Doctor then gets rescued by some scientists, not on the mutant Nazi tank hype train, and the Doctor goes off to wipe out the Daleks' incubation chamber. And this is where the main thesis and main climax of the story takes place. Basically, the Doctor has 2 wires, and he can, if he taps them together, he'll blow up the Daleks, and they'll cease to exist. But he starts to question if he has the right to do that, because he is genociding an entire sentient species before they even have a chance to do anything. The Daleks haven't committed any crimes yet. I mean, I guess they've wiped out the Thals, but they're already at war with the Thals, and the Thals just did it to the Khaleds, so the ethics here is a little bit... This episode plays with the whole Thal Dalek thing, because in the original Daleks, the Thals were these nice sort of elvish kind of ethereal creatures, or the Daleks were these horrible, technology things. In this one, they're both as bad as each other, basically. But yeah, here's the main thesis. Does the Doctor have the right to blow up the Daleks before they do anything? And he hums and haws about it, but then at the end of it, he's informed that Davros has called a meeting of the Khaled Elite, or we're discussing the experiments, so he's basically given an out. But the Doctor chooses to not proverbially kill baby Hitler. So as the Khaleds gather to vote on the fate of the Daleks, the Doctor destroys the recordings of all the info he gave to Davros and figures out that the Thals have got ready to collapse the bunker on the Khaleds. So anyway, they go to the vote, but Davros just has all the Daleks kill all the people who voted against him. Go figure, he was just stalling so that the Daleks that had gone off to kill the Thals could come back to the bunker in time to, kill all the other Khaleds. The Doctor and co run off in the chaos, and the Doctor legs it back to the incubation room to kill the Daleks, but a Dalek accidentally completes the circuit itself and blows the whole room up for him. But by now it's too late because the Daleks have already begun to mass produce themselves, so it is too late now. Then the Doctor races out the bunker while being chased by Daleks. The Thals then blow the bunker and trap the remaining Khaleds and the Daleks down there. In the control room, the Daleks then realise that, if they are the supreme creatures, like Davros has programmed them to be, then they really shouldn't be taking orders from him. So anyway, they kill all the scientists and Davros.
We obey no one. We are the superior beings. Exterminate!
And then literally deliver a monologue to the camera about how they are trapped, but will one day get out and become the ultimate power in the universe. And the Doctor then concedes that all they did was delay the Daleks for a bit, so the whole story was kind of pointless. So this story is a banger, introduced Davros, which we'll get into a lot in this video, but the story is a really tight concept. The whole war degrading back to its roots thing is super cool. There's a lot of great philosophy stuff in here, but with the main one being, is it right to genocide a race before they even have done anything? It is the Doctor Who exploration of the, as I said, go back in time and kill baby Hitler argument. And also the whole argument of, does the Doctor become as bad as the Daleks if he kills all the Daleks? I don't know, it's an interesting philosophical debate. The Daleks are also really good here. This is one of the few stories where I feel like they really work well design-wise. The shots of the Daleks in the Scarrow Wastelands are amazing, and the gunmetal grey colour scheme actually really works for this episode specifically. It really adds to the whole World War II vibe of the thing and makes them feel like these real gritty military machines. Now, the elephants in the room here. Number one is the retcons. This retcons a lot, and not only from the original Dalek story. But first off, the Daleks' original race is now the Khaleds instead of the Dals. The whole thing of them slowly mutating to this point is retconned in favour of the being Frankensteined. The Dalek city is relegated to a bunker, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense as to how the hell they get out of the situation and build the city. Originally it was presumed that the Dalek city existed before they did, as they slowly became the Daleks. In fact, the original pitch from Verity Lambert was that the Daleks were a creature whose brain had become so big that the rest of their bodies had atrophied, and so they needed the travel machine to get around. But now Davros just whisked them up in the lab, and I'm not really a huge fan of this retcon. It did allow to experience, the whole Frankenstein thesis of, the creation, killing the creator, don't play God kind of thing, but it's, I don't know. But The second elephant in the room is Davros himself. So in this story, he's really good, I'll admit it. His performance is amazing, and as a concept, he's pretty cool. Like, the fact they cast a Dalek voice actor in the role is great, because now he kind of sounds like a Dalek, especially when he gets angry. And his chair being the bottom half of the Daleks is a great bit of subtle characterization, showing that A, the Dalek's life support is based on his own, and B, he is incredibly narcissistic. But Davros should have stayed dead. He works really well in this story as the Dr. Frankenstein that eventually gets killed by his monster, but after this story the Daleks never recover in Old Who. This is simultaneously the best Dalek story and the last story in which the Daleks are really good. Except for maybe Remembrance, but we'll get there. After this, the Dalek story is focused pretty much entirely on Davros, and the Daleks are always playing second fiddle to him and just sort of acting like his flunkies. The Daleks lose almost all of their autonomy and complexity and get replaced by Davros. They cease to be these sort of conniving, scheming, alien creatures and just sort of become just battle tanks. Don't get me wrong, Davros is an awesome character, very complex. Love his Daleks like a son. I mean, listen to how upset he is when the Doctor calls them evil.
You created. They are totally evil.
Evil? No. No, I will not accept that. They are conditioned simply to survive.
And his megalomania is awesome to watch, but he should have just stayed dead. In fact, there's no reason how he should have survived. I know originally Terry Nation wanted there to be a scene where you saw like a light blinking on Davros' control board, letting you know that he was still potentially alive, but that never made it to the final episode. So... Next up on this list is Destiny of the Daleks, aka the actual worst Daleks episode ever written. This story is the last story to be written by Terry Nation, and was pretty much entirely rewritten by Douglas Adams, so it's going to be a mess. I know I said Day of the Daleks was the worst Dalek story, but I actually forgot about this one. So this story aired in 1979, 4 years after Genesis of the Daleks, and it features the Fourth Doctor, still, and Romana landing on Skaro. Does this look like Skaro? Nope, the filmmakers just don't give a shit, and it shows. So anyway, they found a bunch of slaves working away on Skaro trying to dig up the old Dalek bunker as the Daleks are looking for Davros. Later, the Daleks are at war with this race of robots called the Mavellans, and their fleets have been locked in a stalemate for like hundreds of years. And basically, each one is manned by a battle computer that is accurately calculating what the other one will do in real time, so they're not doing anything. They've been at war for like centuries, but no one's fired a shot yet. They're just stuck. However, the Daleks, who are now robots for some reason, like what the fuck?
They remember they were once organic creatures themselves, capable of irrational, intuitive thought.
The Daleks are literally robots now. Why? No fucking clue. This is one of those things that you, like, when you're a kid, you get annoyed at your parents for when, like, they call a clone trooper a stormtrooper or something, but, like, the show itself is doing it. So, anyway, the Daleks are robots now, and they are trying to find Davros so they can revive him and get him to fix their battle computer for them, so they can beat the Mavellans. Alright, I mean, not a terrible setup, to be honest, except for the obvious question, weren't the Daleks buried with Davros and Genesis? Like, why is the bunker still caved in? They must have opened it to get out at some point, but anyway, the writing here couldn't even be asked to get the Daleks' biological facts correct, let alone worry about shit like, making sense. So anyway, the Doctor teams up with some Mavellans who are trying to stop the Daleks, and Romana gets captured by the Daleks, who look very worn out and shit this time around. So anyway, the Doctor and co sneak into the Dalek base and find Davros first, who is slowly, coming back to life. Now, Davros is a little different this time around. For starters, he's a different actor. They put no modulation on his voice, and, fuck it, I'll just play this clip.
The Daleks shall be made into perfect creatures. They will be invincible. The Daleks will rule the universe.
Like, this has to be a practical joke, right? I mean, look at him scooting about like an idiot, and the voice is... Well, I'm glad your acting degree is paying off, but, like, the mask doesn't even fit. Like, it's the same mask that the original Davros actor used, but, you couldn't even recast it. Like, it barely fits the guy. He looks like a dude in a rubber Davros mask, because that's literally what he is. Like, if you showed me a clip of this, I would have just assumed it was a Doctor Who parody, I'm honest. Like, it's terrible. So, another side note about Davros. He just wakes up and starts talking about the Daleks and, like, asking where are the Daleks and talking about helping them, but, like, when he was shot... They just Frankensteined him, and he was actually trying to blow them all up. That was like the last time we left him in Genesis. He went to hit the big red button that kills the Daleks, and the Daleks shot him. But anyway, the script is shit, we're just going to move on. So the Doctor captures Davros and uses him as a bargaining chip with the Daleks, saying that he will kill Davros, I think, if they don't give all the human prisoners back. So the Daleks just start shooting prisoners until the Doctor gives up, in what can be described as basically the worst acted scene in Doctor Who history, which is quite the title.
Exterminate!
So anyway, so Romana and the Doctor get back to the Movellans, who are planning to use this doomsday weapon to kill all life on the planet. Which doesn't make any sense because now the Daleks are robots, so if it's going to kill the Daleks, it's also going to kill them. But anyway, the point is the Movellans are also evil, so... Sure. Romana manages to deactivate them all while the Doctor goes back to stop Davros. So Davros vows to make the Daleks the ultimate power in the universe and sends a bunch of them off as suicide bombers to destroy the Movellan ship. The Doctor manages to defeat Davros' Dalek bodyguard by putting his hat over the eye stalk and then blows the Dalek up.
Malfunction!
And then he just manages to hit a thing on Davros' control board, which like makes all the other Daleks blow up early. And yeah, so Davros then gets put into cryogenic freezing chamber and taken off to wait, gets taken off to Earth to await trial for all his crimes. So this story is an absolute madhouse. I mean, it's total bullshit. Like, just look at this scene. The Dalek literally shrugs. And I'm not sure if it's intentional or not, which is the hardest thing. But I mean, holy hell, it just looks dumb. Anyway, 1 out of 10, moving on. So, we move on to the 1984's Resurrection of the Daleks, featuring the 5th Doctor. So, the Daleks this time around are looking to free Davros from the humans, as he's been chilling as a popsicle for like 90 years or something. So they need Davros back, as they are still at war with the Movellans, who have managed to make a virus that targets the Daleks' organic parts and kills them. So the Daleks aren't robots anymore, apparently. The show has given me whiplash. I mean, if it wasn't for Davros being frozen at the beginning of this episode, I would have just considered Destiny the Daleks as non-canon, but anyway. So the Daleks and these frankly ridiculous Dalek troopers manage to free Davros, and Davros, he gets to work on a cure for the Movellan virus, but he is also tampering with the Daleks themselves to make them obedient to him. So this is a good continuation of Genesis, where Davros wants his children to be completely obedient to him once again. You would think this would work out for him, as the Doctor hasn't shown up yet, but while all that's been going on, the Doctor's been dragged through a time corridor which takes him to planet Earth in the 1980s. Basically, the Daleks are trying to catch him so they can make a clone of him and his companions and get them to assassinate the Gallifreyan High Council. What? These plans are completely unrelated. Why on earth would you do both at the same time? Like, find Davros, get him to kill the Movellan virus, and then get the Doctor and clone him, one at a time. Come on, Supreme Dalek. Anyway, so the Doctor and his companions, Tegan and Trullo or something, I don't know, find a time corridor leading to a Dalek spaceship. The Supreme Dalek sends a Dalek through it to apprehend the Doctor, but the Doctor and some soldiers who were there to disarm some bombs or something blow off its eye stalk and then push it out of a window, giving us one of the greatest Dalek fails in history. However, the Dalek threat is not quite over as the Dalek mutant gets out of the casing and begins to attack people with its apparently venomous bite. So once the Dalek mutant is dealt with, the Doctor goes through to the Dalek ship, and they capture him and begin to clone him. He escapes and then realises that Davros is, lurking about and goes off to kill him. Just straight up, the Doctor's going to kill him. They meet up and have this really great scene.
Hesitate, Doctor. If I were you, I would be dead.
I lack your practice, Davros.
But the Doctor is stopped from killing Davros. While this has been going on, Davros has managed to gain control of a few Daleks and recondition them to be loyal to him. So Davros sends his new Daleks off to Earth because he figures that the old Daleks are going to want to kill him when they realise what he's done. And there is a fight between the Daleks that the Doctor ends by realising that the bombs that were hidden in the building that the bomb squad were there to find were actually full of the Movellan virus. Davros then uses a capsule of the Movellan virus when the Supreme Dalek sends some Daleks to kill him, which, gives them rabies. However, in a fantastic thematic turn of events, the Movellan virus also kills Davros, because Davros is just as horrid, evil, and unnatural as his creations.
It cannot be! I am not a Dalek! I cannot die! I am Davros!
Beautiful poetic justice for Davros. He tried to gain control of the Daleks only to be reminded that he is just like them, which is also really cool because it shows that even though the Daleks view Davros as inferior, he is basically the same as they are. Anyway, for such a simple little scene, it's pretty awesome. So yeah, then the Supreme Dalek Skypes the Doctor to tell him that they have actually cloned a bunch of important people on Earth or something, and so a third Zanny scheme is in the works, but then they manage to blow up the Dalek ship and they all live happily ever after. So this story makes really no sense. Like, why are the Daleks trying all of this at once? Why bring the Doctor in at all if he's the only one who could stop you? But this beginning of the Dalek Civil War, with Davros looking to take control of his creations, the Daleks Lord of the Supreme Dalek trying to stop him, This will be the primary Dalek conflict of the next, the rest of the tenure in the classic series. So stay tuned. This is also a notable story because it's actually the first time you see the Dalek eye stalk being a weakness, like outside of the Doctor like throwing his hat on it, I guess. But like the whole shoot the eye stalk thing, that is like a common thing that comes up with Daleks for like a while. This is the first time it ever appeared, so that's pretty cool. So we next see the Daleks in 1985, the two-part story Revelation of the Daleks, which sees the bitchy 6th Doctor going off to this planet Necros to see an old friend who is in this miracle hospital, healthcare, funeral home thing there. Basically, in the future, they cryogenically freeze people who have like diseases and stuff, so they can just wait it out until there's a cure and then like come out, which is a cool concept. However, Davros is actually running the hospital now as this disembodied head. He's going by the moniker the Great Healer and works at the futuristic funeral home. So he's using it to farm organic material from the patients and to turn them into a new army of Daleks. And also solves the food crisis by turning the waste he can't use for Daleks into food, so good guy Davros. Anyway, he's making these slick white and gold Daleks, which might be my favourite Dalek colour scheme ever. It looks really good. I think the actual Imperial Daleks look better than the Necros ones, but they're still pretty cool. But anyway, yeah, the Doctor and Peri are attacked by this crazy mutant guy who tells them that the Great Healer used him for experiments, so old Davros is back at his old tricks again. So this business lady called Kara, who owns the food company that Davros is supplying, wants him dead for some reason, and so these assassin guys sent to do it. They fail, but anyway. So it turns out that Davros is using the people at the hospital to grow them into more Daleks in this really cool glass Dalek capsule thing. So basically the Doctor and Peri get caught by Davros and some Daleks show up from Skaro to arrest Davros and destroy the Necros Daleks. Davros' one remaining hand is blown off, hence why he has a metal one in the new series, and a Dalek is destroyed by a rock and roll gun. I'm not even capping at that one. So anyway, the Daleks take Davros back to Skaro for trial because apparently they have a legal system now, who knows. And I have a few questions. One, why is the Doctor even here? Like, he doesn't resolve the story at all, the Daleks do that for him. And two, how did Davros survive the Movillan virus? He's just there now with no explanation. Like, not really that good. The Necros Dalek and the Glass Dalek looks cool, and the concept is really neat, but, like, on notable things, it's revealed here that Davros can fly, like his chair can fly, and that he can shoot lightning from his hands, which is something that comes up a little bit later, so that's cool. But, yeah. So we now reach the final Dalek story of the classic series, Remembrance of the Daleks. Released in 1988, this is the last time the Daleks ever appeared in the classic series, with an offensively 80s soundtrack and explosions so big the police thought the IRA were actually bombing London. And it's basically just a trip down nostalgia lane. It takes place in that school from the unearthly child. And it's all about the Daleks trying to find this ancient Time Lord weapon called the Hand of Omega that the Doctor left there when he originally landed on Earth back in the 60s when he was Willy Bum Bum. So the 7th Doctor and Ace, the most abrasive companion of all time, show up as two factions of Daleks are fighting over the Hand of Omega. The new spiffy Imperial Daleks, who have this great white and gold colour scheme, are led by the Dalek Emperor, who is probably the worst Dalek prop to date.
Doctor, you have changed again!
And the Renegade Daleks, who are the gunmetal grey ones, and they're led by the Supreme Dalek. It's not really clear if this is the same Dalek Supreme as from the Resurrection of the Daleks, but it could be. And anyway, they're having a spat on Skaro over who is the real Daleks, and it's just basically the Horus Heresy, except with Daleks. The Renegade Daleks are more experienced with the Chaos Space Marines, and excel in combat over the Imperial counterparts, like in this scene. But the Imperials have way better tech in this scene. So anyway, the human army is, some human army is there fighting the Daleks, and there is this group of cartoonish fascists working with the Renegade Daleks and the Time Computer, their battle computer, who is literally a little girl who can shoot lightning out of her hands for some reason.
You were born
to serve the Daleks.
The fuck? Anyway, so the story basically plays out in this big action piece with the Doctor scheming about how to ensure that the correct faction of Daleks gets their hands on the Hand of Omega. After bringing out the absolute unit of a Dalek, called the Special Weapons Dalek, which looks really shit. I don't get the fandom's love for this thing. It wasn't even meant to be in the script originally. The Imps were supposed to have this big weapon platform that they could operate, but because of budget reasons, they turned it into a rubbish bin with a bazooka on the front. But anyway, the Imperial Daleks get the hand of Omega and take it back to their Death Star ship that's orbiting around the Earth. The Doctor then gives them a ring, and it is revealed that the Dalek Emperor is actually Davros himself.
Have confounded me for the last time!
Davros.
Although he is straight up wearing a bin bag with wires taped on it this time. Anyway, basically Davros must have somehow won control of the Dalek race when he was taken for trial, and started this whole Dalek civil war. But anyway, Davros wants to use the Hand of Omega to destroy the Time Lords and let the Daleks control time, so this is basically the start of the Time War, and the Doctor tricks him into using it. However, the device just blows up Skaro's sun and destroys the Dalek mothership, although Davros himself manages to get out in an escape pod.
Home planet Skaro about to vaporize! Emperor abandoning bridge! Emperor activating escape pod!
Back on Earth, the Doctor manages to gaslight the Supreme Dalek into self-destructing.
You are lying. There is insufficient data.
You're trapped 1 trillion miles and 1,000 years from a disintegrated home. Ashes to ashes. Dust to dust.
The Daleks are no more. So this story is really cool. It's very high action, has some basic themes about like anti-white supremacy or something. It's all a bit dull, but anyway. There's no real... It's also a shame how the Daleks are basically relegated to being panzers again instead of like the highly conniving aliens that they were originally, but I mean it's better than the previous 13 years of Dalek stories. So we get to see the Daleks fly for the first time, which is cool. We also get to see Ace destroy a Dalek with a baseball bat, so that's, you know, not very cool.
Get on level 3.
Calling smoke!
Also, the Dalek props were changed for this episode, installing these big 3-wheel things in the bases, which meant they could actually, you know, get around on rougher terrain, but had, like, they have to, like, 3-point turn like a car now, instead of being able to swivel on the spot. And we get the absolute definitive end for the Daleks, right? I mean, how do they come back from this one? Their planet is destroyed along with, you know, all the Daleks. They can't come back from this, right, guys? And to be honest, if you watch any of the classic series, this is the end of the Daleks, and quite a fitting one at that. The Doctor basically undoes all his mistakes in Genesis and destroys them all. So, a pretty fitting end to the genocidal pepperpots. So that was the classic series Doctor Who Daleks. I mean, the evolution is quite interesting, going from the Daleks all the way through to Remembrance. I think that the Daleks really change from the black and white era to the colour era. I prefer them in the black and white era. I think that the more sleek and alien designs on them, they were creepier, they had a lot more character, their schemes were much more interesting. They really did feel like this very alien, very interesting race, and the concept was so cool. I mean, that's one thing that I'm going to get to in a minute is the sci-fi concepts here. But like, the John Pertwee says he doesn't understand why the Daleks are so popular. Very iconic design, but they really felt alien. They weren't just a dude in a rubber costume like most of the Doctor Who villains at the time. Like, these really felt like actual alien creatures. They were weird, and they were very basic, you know, they were based on the Britain's, you know, ultimate enemy. Like, we're only, what, like, 20 years after World War II, so most people's, you know, that's pretty fresh in people's minds. You know, having seen the Daleks walking around doing Hitler salutes through London and all that kind of thing, like, you know, a very obvious enemy that the British people would hate. And the designs changed, obviously. The gunmetal grey, I think, works in Genesis, and I think Remembrance of the Daleks, I don't like it really at all other than that. I think the Imperial Dalek design is much nicer. It keeps some of that sort of regalness, that elegance to the Daleks. Obviously, there were major retcons throughout, not into the characters, and it is a shame how really once Davros shows up on the scene, the Daleks are completely relegated to just being tanks. basically, just tanks that you'll exterminate. I think that the 60s Dalek era is much stronger, and it's quite different to how the Daleks ended up, especially now. But there's also like the timeline questions of like the 60s timeline makes some sense, kind of. Like from Dalek Invasion of Earth to Evil of the Daleks, it makes sense. And then you have like the Pertwee era Daleks, where the Daleks just sort of doing whatever they want. And then you have at least the you know, Doctors 4, 5, 6, 7. At least there is, you got the Mavellan War going on. You've got this, you got that, you got Davros. You've got like, at least it makes some sense. But yeah, and I mean, one thing that doing these videos, like doing the research and watching the clips and stuff for these videos, it's like, it really shows me that like the strength of Doctor Who is these concepts are so cool that you can overlook a lot of time the absolutely terrible writing, terrible special effects, terrible acting, right? You can overlook most of that. Because these concepts are so good. Like the Daleks are such a good concept. This idea of this race that's so smart, the rest of the body's atrophied, that they need a device to get around, and they, you know, and this idea of like the Dalek factor, the human factor. It's very 60s, but like, you know, stuff like that is really cool. You know, finding an army of Daleks is kind of boring, but like Genesis of Daleks is a fantastic war story. You know. The whole idea of the Mavellan battle computer and the Dalek battle computer being unable to literally fire a shot because they're so logical, that's really cool, high concept sci-fi that is, you know, explored in these like 3 BBC studios with some like dudes in rubber costumes. But like, you know, you have stuff like the Mavellan virus, the whole idea of like a hospital where you cryogenically freeze people so that they, you know, we'll put them into suspended animation, so they can wait it out while like you find a cure to their disease. That's fantastic. That's really cool. Even the idea of having like taking these massive galactic scale wars and dumbing them down to such a small skirmish that still feels like it matters. Like Remembrance of the Daleks does that. Really, really impressive from just the ideas standpoint. But really, I think I have to talk about Davros again here. I really don't like him. I think he looks silly. I think in Genesis he's great, but like outside of Genesis, he completely kneecapped the Daleks. Since then, they're just always subservient to him, and I think they function much better when he's not around. I think Remembrance is the only time that I think Davros kind of works, and that's because he's not revealed to be Davros till the very, very end. So I don't know, not a fan of Davros, but that was the end of the classic series Daleks. Join me next time as we talk about the Russell T Davies era of the Daleks, so that's going to be a good one. And check out my horror story, Mal the Graveyard Man, if you like horror. Halloween soon, so it's apt, I guess, although it's R-rated, so if you're a kid, don't read it. But anyway, thanks very much for watching this one. Hopefully it doesn't get copyright struck with BBC again, and we see you all next time.